Absolutely. And to kind of finish answering the question why I can, as a man, help women, one of the reasons is that I went through the pain of indecision myself, and the real problem that people are facing, or women are facing, is not being in a bad relationship, is the indecision of what to do about it. And I understand that better than anyone else, or as well as anyone else, because I've been stuck there for 5 years. And the other thing is that most women, hopefully, go through the divorce decision maybe once, twice, or 3 times in their lives. But because of the work that I've done, I've interacted with literally hundreds of women, and I've seen all the nooks and crannies and specific issues related to the divorce decision through the lens of hundreds of different women, hundreds of perspectives. So I understand all the nuances, the specific challenges related to the divorce decision for women at a much deeper level than any woman who's stuck into that limbo could understand themselves. Does that make sense?
Hey everyone, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. I have someone on the screen today who's going to talk about a topic that's really kind of difficult to talk about in some circles, but I think it needs to be discussed. And Mike is here to talk about his book and how he helps people. And if you've been battling with the ideas of divorce in your life, making a change because you need some better environment for you and your family, Mike's got some interesting insights to share with us, and he's got a great background. A lot of knowledge, skills, and abilities to help us as readers, as family members, as spouses, as parents. He's going to be here to help us. And I'm really glad to have time with Mike on our schedule today. Mike, you have been around the world. You met a lot of people, and you've lived some amazing places. I would love for you to welcome everyone. Can you welcome all of our listeners from around the world? Tell us, first of all, where you are right now, and then let's welcome everyone that's listening.
For sure. So thanks, first of all, for having me on the show, Dave. And right now I am next to Montreal in Canada, but I lived in 5 different countries before moving here. So I'm going to just say a few words for your international audience. Donc, bonjour, je m'appelle Mike Fink, et je voulais juste vous dire que même si le podcast de Dave Campbell est en anglais, eh bien, Dave apprécie énormément son audience internationale. Et c'est pour ça qu'il m'a demandé de vous dire quelques mots en français. Hola, me llamo Mike Fink y quisiera decirle que aunque el podcast de Dave está en inglés, Dave aprecia mucho a su audiencia internacional y por eso me pidió que le dijera algunas palabras en español. Salve, sono Mike Fink e sono qua con Dave Campbell e ovviamente il suo podcast è in inglese, però volevo che e lui voleva anche che voi sappiate che apprezza tantissimo la sua udienza internazionale e per questo mi ha domandato di dirvi qualche parola in italiano. Quindi eccoci qua. So here you have it.
So good, Mike. I picked up words. I'm like, hey, I know some of those words. I like that. That sounded great. Thank you so much for doing that and welcoming our listeners from around the world. I'm sure that made them smile. So it's great to hear when you press play on an English-speaking podcast and someone speaks to you in your language. I think that just makes the listener feel so happy. So thank you for doing that.
For sure.
Excellent, Mike. Tell everybody a little bit about your background. I'm on your website while we're chatting, so I'm kind of looking off screen here while we're talking. Tell us about your background, Mike. It's pretty fascinating who you are and what you are doing in this world. A little background about you.
Thank you, Dave. So, your listeners probably have faced a decision that they have to make where they don't know what to do. It's such a complex decision, and it's such a high cost of failure decision, meaning that they have to consider a lot of variables. And at the same time, if they get that decision wrong, the consequences will be maybe devastating or very high or long-term. It will affect a lot of people. And one typical decision is the divorce decision. So I have discovered through my personal journey, because they say that your wounds are your gifts, a revolutionary process to help people make complex, high cost of failure decisions. And I then realized that because of my own experience with indecision and in being stuck in a relationship, and I'm going to talk about that more in a second, the divorce decision is one of the toughest decisions one can ever make. Extremely complex, devastating consequences if you get it wrong, and a lot of fear of regret. And many people, and I work mostly with women, are stuck for years, sometimes even decades, in that status quo, in that indecision prison. So that's what I do. I help women considering divorce make the right decision with confidence with this revolutionary process that basically mimics the way we make decisions that we feel good about. that we feel that, oh my goodness, I have peace of mind. I know it's the right thing to do.
Okay, now I'm on your website. The one thing that stands out to me right away is a quote saying, like, why should I, as a woman, take divorce advice from a man? And I made me stop and go, yeah, you're right, Mike. Why should any woman listen to you as a guy giving advice to them for divorce? Shouldn't they be listening to another woman? Like, what's the advantage and what's the unique take that it comes from working with you in this?
That's a great question. By the way, you are on divorcedecisiondecoded.com, right? So this is where people can find the book that I wrote. But most importantly, why am I uniquely qualified to help women? Because yes, I'm a man. You could say, well, how does he understand what I'm going through? So this is where my origin story comes into place. I have a master's in psychology from Yale University, and I've been working in the field of personal development for 2 decades. And on the second half of the decade, I actually got into a business 50-50 partnership with a gentleman. I was the personal development expert. He was the marketing expert. And what happened is that the first 5 years were okay, but after 5 years, trouble started brewing. We started having to adapt to a changing market. We started needing to make different decisions. And this is where I started realizing that our values were different. We're diverging. Our vision for the way to serve our customers was different. And the relationship became more and more strained. We were not agreeing, we were arguing, and it escalated to us having screaming matches in front of our top-level employee, which I felt ashamed about after that. I wasn't sure if it was me, if it was him. But the biggest thing I realized is that the real problem that I was facing was not being in a bad business relationship. It was the problem of indecision. And indecision, for those who have not experienced it, can actually be like chronic pain. Some days are worse, some days are better, but overall, your quality of life is pretty miserable. And it gets worse with the compounding of time, because indecision means that you are in a place, and I was in a place where I was asking myself, well, things are obviously not working, but is it me? Is it him? Is it a relationship? Am I wrong? Because, a lot of times he said that I was wrong and he was right. But even if I'm right, what if I decide to pull the trigger and end the relationship? Well, it's going to be very costly because I'm going to have to buy him out. And then what if I cannot make it by myself? Because, it's scary. I'm going to have to start from scratch. And my self-esteem was going down. And a lot of women hearing this probably can relate, because the thing is that the pain of indecision is gender neutral. And it really is a very little understood pain. Now, I went deeper and deeper into this terrible rabbit hole of pain and misery. I burned out physically. I had mental consequences in terms of my mental health, physical consequences. And then I turned 50. And thankfully, I decided to do a life review. And when I did, I realized, you know what? I made a lot of mistakes in my life, like many people, but I got the big decisions right, like moving to Canada or finding my spouse. There was a couple of decisions I got wrong. One of them was having gotten into this business partnership. And with hindsight, I realized, Dave, that I had this nagging voice, those gut feelings back at the time, 10 years prior, that told me, oh, no, maybe it's not right. But because I could not justify those feelings logically, I could not verbalize them or articulate them logically, I shoved them under the rug. And I realized that all the good decisions that I had made, I had been using a very specific step-by-step process to come to my decision with clarity, with peace of mind, with alignment. But for some reason, I didn't apply it. So when I went back to quote unquote my roots and applied my own medicine, this is when I went from anxiety, turmoil, stress to peace of mind, clarity. All of a sudden, I knew what to do, why I wanted to do it in a way that I could explain easily to others, in a way that felt right with my head, with my heart, and with my gut. And the decision was to end the relationship. Now, it doesn't mean it was easy. I still had to sell an asset to make it financially. It depleted me financially. I still had to go through the negotiation of the terms and so on. But the way I dealt with that decision was completely different. I knew I was doing the right thing and I was at peace. And even though I may not have had all the answers, I was figuring them out one at a time. And it got me thinking, wow, okay, there's a way to go from anxiety to clarity fairly fast. And then my spouse's brother, who's a medical doctor, was going through the same kind of challenge. He had been mulling over a professional decision for 2 years in terms of what to do next in terms of his medical career. And he had anxiety, nausea. He couldn't think about it anymore. And I decided to apply my newfound process and my improved process with him. And in 2 hours, Dave, he went from nausea and anxiety to absolute clarity. He told me that he had been stumbled for 2 years in a pitch dark room, bumping on the furniture. And it was as if I had turned the light on and suddenly he could see. So he was able to make his decision. He's been thriving ever since. And that's when I knew, you know what? I have put my finger on something revolutionary here. And I actually changed my life mission to share the message, to share this process with the entire world, because that's how valuable it was for me, for other people. And now, this is it. Let's impact lives.
Okay. I like it. So even though your main focus is through the book for women making a very life-altering decision around divorce, there's other ways to apply this to other situations as well. So it is kind of far-reaching in that you can use it for a business relationship, you can use it for multiple different things, but your main focus through the book is to focus on women making that decision around divorce. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And to kind of finish answering the question why I can, as a man, help women, one of the reasons is that I went through the pain of indecision myself, and the real problem that people are facing, or women are facing, is not being in a bad relationship, is the indecision of what to do about it. And I understand that better than anyone else, or as well as anyone else, because I've been stuck there for 5 years. And the other thing is that most women, hopefully, go through the divorce decision maybe once, twice, or 3 times in their lives. But because of the work that I've done, I've interacted with literally hundreds of women, and I've seen all the nooks and crannies and specific issues related to the divorce decision through the lens of hundreds of different women, hundreds of perspectives. So I understand all the nuances, the specific challenges related to the divorce decision for women at a much deeper level than any woman who's stuck into that limbo could understand themselves. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, it does. So for you, as you roll this out into the world, you see real examples of people taking your plan, your thoughts, and putting it into practice. What does that mean for you to see people have success taking your thoughts and taking your practice and putting into practice for themselves? How does that feel for you as a creator of this, seeing people actually be successful now, doing the steps that you outline? How does that make you feel?
Awesome. As you can see,
Yeah.
I'm very passionate about my subject. I'm containing myself from jumping up and down because I'm getting the chance, thanks to you, to share my message with the world. And there's one analogy that I share. I tell people, it's like I used to be in a prison camp, like a prisoner of war camp. And one day I found a way out. There's a hole that I dug. I was able to go under the fence and find my way out of the maze. And I found freedom. And now I feel like I'm going back inside the prison camp and telling the other prisoners, hey, psst, come over here. Come, I found a way out. Come, let me lead you to freedom. So just imagine the sense of elation when you are able to take a person who's been suffering years or decades and with terrible quality of life, because the indecision affects your life on a daily basis in terms of your mental focus, your energy level. You can't sleep. You cannot take care of your children properly because you're not fully present. It messes up with your social interactions, with your health habits. I mean, in extreme cases, people are literally paralyzed. Their life is on hold. They have put their life on pause, and they're just waiting in pain. So the joy of being able to take a person from that kind of pain and misery and to give them the freedom and to help them move forward with their life and to finally find joy because they're able to explain their decision to themselves, to their kids, to move forward, to maybe find a new partner and to be happier, to make sure that the second half of their life is happier. This goes beyond anything. So it's an incredibly personally rewarding sense of satisfaction.
So, Mike, as I think of the audience listening to this, the ideal reader for your book, she is listening to our conversation today. She's here because of something caught her attention to come and listen to us today. And the things that are keeping her from moving forward from indecision to decision are weights. And I'm thinking of multiple weights that she's carrying right now all over herself, like on her shoulders and her arms, on her back. Things like if I make a decision to divorce, what about my children? What about my financial situation? What about people's opinions of me? All these things are weights that she has to wrestle with. Do you have any kind of things through your book that are going to help us to unpack those weights so that we feel free to make a decision? Do you help us with that in your book?
Absolutely, yes. And in fact, let me give you first an analogy. So right now, I'm holding two Rubik cubes in my hand. And you can see that in one hand, I have a Rubik cube that is completely jumbled in terms of the colors. And on the other hand, I have a Rubik cube that is perfectly solved. All the colors are nice and aligned, right? Now, here's a question for you, Dave. Is any piece missing in the jumbled cube? Are there like any lesser number? Are there any fewer number of cubes or color stickers on the jumbled cube?
No, they're
all there, right? So the analogy that I use is that really making the right decision is like solving the Rubik cube, because all the necessary pieces for you to make the right decision are already inside of you. The one thing that's missing is applying the proper sequence in terms of how to turn the faces of the cube to go from the jumbled to the solved cube, right? And this was a revolutionary discovery that I made, because there is a natural process that we go through, not deliberately, but that we go through, that enables us to make a decision that we feel good about with our head, with our heart, and with our gut. So the first thing is there is a process, a step-by-step, that will always reveal your own answer, because it doesn't matter what I think, what your therapist or marriage counselor thinks. The only thing that matters is what you think, what you feel inside. So in the book, Divorce Decision Decoded, they will find this step-by-step process that is similar to the process, to the algorithm of solving the Rubik Cube. If you follow the sequence in the right order, you will always get the right answer. So let me give you more information, because I want to help as many people as I can. One of the issues that most women have is, first of all, that they are not considering all the pieces of the puzzle. They're just focused on the small number of variables. And imagine trying to solve a jigsaw puzzle that is 1,000 pieces, and you just have 50 pieces in your hand. And you try to make out, well, what is the image that is supposed to be represented by this jigsaw puzzle? It's impossible, right? And a lot of women just do not know all the things that are important to you. So you and I kind of already had this conversation pre-recording, but most people have between 20 to 30 things that are important to them in a relationship. To a lot of women, it may sound like a lot, but when you start adding up, having someone who is supportive, who has great communication skills, or who helps with the house chores, or who's a great dad, who can support or contribute financially, who is affectionate. I mean, once you start thinking about all the things that are important to your relationship, well, they add up. So if you're not considering them all, it's not going to be easy for you to solve things. And I remember asking you the question, does 20 to 30 things sound like a lot to you? And what was your answer?
Before I met my wife, Jennifer, I had a list of 24 things that I was looking for in my future partner before I even met her. And that brought, as soon as I met you and you brought that up, Mike, and my mind went right back. 31 years I've been married, and that list, still we joke about that and laugh about that list and refer back to it, because those were all things in the moment that I thought I was looking for in a potential partner. But at the same time, I was also realizing that my future potential partner might have a list of their own. So I should be developing myself in preparation for a future relationship by becoming a better person, by learning how to cook, by taking care of myself, and having all those things, and potentially marking off things that might be on her list at the same time as wishing for my list to be complete. I knew I had to do my own personal work as well. So you mentioned it, and I was sat up straight. I'm like, oh, Mike, I have so many things to say. Yes, no, it's great. I love this.
Thank you for sharing that, Dave. And I will say that you are definitely much more advanced than most people, because most people, if I ask them, do you know what is important to your relationship? They may be able to say a few things, but certainly not be aware that they have 24. They didn't take the time to write them down. And there's also an art and a science of writing things down. So you really make sure that each thing that is important to you is a clear, distinct unit, is a clear, different value. Now, I will say something on your comment, because it's really interesting to bounce live in a way. You mentioned that you knew what was important to you, but you also wanted to develop things to make sure you would be a good match. I'd say that the first part is really more important than the second one because, yes, we always want, or ideally, it's good to strive to improve ourselves and to become a better human being. Having said that, you may decide that I should learn how to cook, but maybe the woman that you will meet doesn't really care that you can cook or not, right? But the thing that really matters is that if for you it's important to have a woman who knows how to drive a stick shift car, that she knows how to drive a stick
You
shift
remember
car.
that.
Also remember, right?
Yes.
Okay. So step number one is gathering all the pieces of the puzzle, understanding what's important to you, and also knowing that as human beings, we're not very good at understanding our own emotions. In the book, this Divorce Decision Decoded, I mentioned a couple of scientific studies, and one of them is the fact that they take people on a suspended bridge. We're in Canada, so it actually happened in Vancouver, and it's called the Capilano Suspended Bridge Study. And they took males on the suspended bridge that was 270 feet high, and that was shaking, and they were supposed to meet a woman, an attractive woman, in the middle of the bridge. And then they replicated the same thing, but on a lower bridge that was not scary at all. And basically what they did is they had those males walk all the way to the middle of the bridge, interact with that attractive woman, fill out a survey, and at the end, the woman would say, hey, here's my phone number in case you have more questions about the survey. And what they measured is how many people will end up calling the attractive woman. And what they found out was that many more males who had crossed the high bridge, the one that was scary and shaky, ended up calling the woman versus the one who just went on a kind of, neutral bridge. So the question for you is, what do you think the reason is?
The stakes are higher, maybe, with the higher bridge, that there's some fear possibly that has to be addressed to cross a bridge that I don't know if I could do that. That's a high bridge. I would be nervous, and I would be thinking more about the bridge than the interaction with the person I meet in the middle of the bridge.
For sure. And
I'd be more worried about that.
And what would make that make you more likely to call the woman afterwards?
Because we both met a goal and did something together. There's a bond that's created in that moment, that we both had to face our fears and meet each other in that space, which is not the most friendly space. So I feel like we both accomplished something together in that moment.
That's a wonderful interpretation. And maybe there's also a part of that is true. And the main conclusion that was drawn from this study is that whenever you go on a bridge that is shaky, that is scary, it provokes some physical arousal, right? And that physical arousal was misinterpreted by the male participants as sexual attraction or romantic attraction.
Oh,
they felt aroused.
Right.
They said, I'm aroused. I'm not sure why. Oh, pretty woman. I must be attracted to her. And the reason this is an interesting study to quote is that we do not know how to interpret our emotions. And very often we misattribute some of our emotions to the wrong thing. And I have one case study of this woman. I'll call her Tracy, not her real name, to protect her privacy. But she was very unhappy in her relationship. And one of the things that stood out for her was that her husband was very messy. He would leave the laundry on the floor, the dirty dishes, and that would drive her nuts. And the reality was that there were other issues in her relationship that made it so that she wasn't happy. But because she didn't have the clarity of understanding, is that really important to me? Why am I feeling this way? She was misattributing all the negative emotions to him being messy, because that was the most obvious environmental cue, right? And as a result, she was focusing exactly on the wrong thing to try to improve the relationship. When she went through a process that will address the kind of second issue that most people have, I'll tell you more, but she realized that she didn't really care about having somebody who was orderly or organized versus messy. There were other things that were more important to her, but it took that level of awareness for her to realize that and to focus on the real leverage points, on the real needle movers. Does that make sense? Okay.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And then to jump back again to that, my wife being able to drive standard transmission, manual transmission. The reason why I put that on my list, it might seem petty when you hear this, you're like, well, that seems really ridiculous, was when I was a young man, I had a manual transmission, a sports car. I really loved this car. And I noticed my friends, when they would find their future potential partners, that they would have a single car and they would drive manual, but their future partner didn't. So they would actually have to sell their favorite vehicle because they wanted to make sure that their partner could be able to drive the vehicle as well. And the remorse they had, the sadness they had in that moment, because they had to give away something they loved to create space for their new partner, it was a sacrifice. And they wished that they didn't have to do the sacrifice in the moment. So I watched these things happen for my friends and went, you know what, I want to avoid that situation. So I'm going to write it down as one of my things that for me would bring value to our relationship. Would it be something that I would say no to someone if they couldn't drive a manual transmission? No, but it was on the list as something important. When I met my future partner, she drove an old pickup truck, standard transmission. She was better at driving standard than I was. So I felt so relieved when I brought that up. And she's like, oh yeah, I've been driving standard for years. The relief in my mind, Mike, in that moment, without even having to show her the list in that moment, it just in normal conversation, I felt so relieved compared to my friends who were sacrificing something they loved for a relationship. I didn't have to do that because it was on my list. So when we talk about just driving manual, people are like, "Wow, that seems really petty." But for us, it was like a confirmation that this was a good fit. So that's kind of why I did.
You bring up a great point, which is that, and this is what I tell my clients: nothing is petty. There's nothing too small or too big for you. What you feel is what you feel, and what's important to you is what's important to you. And I say that it's as ridiculous to try to change what is important to you as it would be to try to change the way you feel about a certain food. Maybe you love sushi or maybe you hate sushi. But either way, if you hate sushi, it would be ridiculous for somebody to come and tell you, hey, Dave, you should like sushi because that's the way, proper people feed themselves.
Yeah.
Well, if I don't like sushi, I don't like sushi. So there's nothing that is too petty or too small. What's important to you is what is important to you. So that's another part of the things that happens to the process, is gathering all the pieces of the puzzle to make sure you have all the elements that you need, just like the Rubik's Cube. You need to have all the little cubes and color stickers to solve it. And then there's another element is, even if you have all the pieces of the puzzle and you know all the things that are important to you, whether you consider them petty or not, then the next step is that most people keep weighing the pros and cons. Most women are like, well, I need to divorce, or I don't need to divorce. Maybe I'm thinking about divorce, but what about the impact on my kids? Or what about the impact on my finances? But on the other hand, I avoid coming home because I cannot stand having yet another argument with my husband. I mean, there are so many different situations. Some women are in a roommate-like relationship where things are fine on the surface, but they're not fulfilled. Some others, there's a lot of fighting going on. Some others, it's periods of things are going great and then things are going bad, ups and downs. So there's a multitude of different scenarios. But if you don't know what's more important versus what's less important, what's essential versus what's optional, then you won't know what the things are that you can compromise on versus the one that you need to absolutely focus on. And, a lot of women go to marriage counseling to try to solve the question in terms of should I stay or should I go? And I say that this is putting the cart before the horse. Because first, you need to know, can I save the relationship? You need to know with absolute certainty whether you can save your relationship or not based on the things that are important to you and essential to you. And if so, knowing what the specific points of leverage are so that then you can go to do marriage counseling and focus wholeheartedly on the how to solve those things. But first of all, you need to identify with certainty, can I save my relationship or not? If so, what I should focus on. And if not, being able to move forward with peace of mind. And you can only do that if you have absolute clarity in terms of what's essential to me versus optional. There's another thing that I call also the deal breakers, which is something that if it were to happen, the relationship would be over. But there really are two kinds of deal breakers. The first one is what I call an instant deal breaker. For some women, it is if my husband were to, or if my spouse, because it doesn't matter whether you're in a same sex or different sex relationship, if my spouse were to cheat on me, that would be it. That's it. Or if my spouse were to gamble or to do to use drugs or whatever, some things would be absolutely clear. But probably those women would have already made that divorce decision because it is an instant deal breaker. Or if my spouse abuses me physically or my children. Well, but there's a second kind of deal breaker that is much more subtle and not easy at all to detect, and yet it is essential. I call that cumulative deal breakers. And let me give you the example of going to a restaurant. You go with friends to a restaurant, and when you get there, there is construction noise next door because they're renovating. Well, obviously, having all this noise will not enable you to enjoy your meal or to talk with your friends. But if the restaurant owner is to tell you, you know what, it will be over in 5 minutes, you can put up with it and then you'll enjoy the rest of your meal. If they say, this is going to go on for the next 2 hours, it's a no-go. So it's something that it's not the thing by itself that makes it a deal breaker. It's effect over time. It's cumulative effect over time that will make it so that it's not viable for you long term. And this is something much more difficult to detect. So this is one of the things that my process helps women do: understand what's essential versus optional and understand what their clear deal breakers are. Now, before I get to the third thing, and you talked about weights in terms of the weight of indecision and so on. I actually use the analogy of an indecision prison with walls, and there are several walls that surround women. We talked about not knowing how to interpret our emotions properly. We talked about focusing on too few variables instead of all the relevant variables. We talked about not knowing what is more important versus less important. Let me give you a quick primer, if you wish, on how we make decisions. Have you ever gone to a restaurant, Dave, and you look at the menu and there are several dishes that look, potentially a good choice, but you're not sure what to pick? Have you ever been into this? I'm not sure what to order.
Yeah, usually my wife will step in and go, "You're going to like this one." And I'm like, "Okay, that's good. That works. I like that." Because she knows.
So you agree on that process?
But I know.
A lot of people have that experience. And the reason is that when you go to a restaurant, you have some things, some values, some variables that are important to you that you are not necessarily consciously aware of. We go back to that, the first step of change is awareness. And most people want to have something that is tasty, that is healthy, and also reasonably priced. And you have a dish that fulfills all those three things, it's a go, go, go. If nothing fulfills, then probably you won't go back to that restaurant. The problem comes when you are caught in what I call the yes, but, endless loop. Wow, this looks delicious. But it has 1,500 calories. Oh, this is healthy. Yes, but it's tasteless. Oh, this is both tasty and healthy. Yeah, but it's completely overpriced. And way out of this quote unquote indecision is only by understanding what's more important versus less important. And you will choose something different if you want to have something that's tasty versus healthy versus reasonably priced as the most important value. So why is this important to you? Because the divorce decision is a very complex decision because it has not three variables, because we get confused at the restaurant with just three variables. So imagine having to make a decision about your relationship that will impact you, your kids, where you have 20 to 30 things to consider. Your mind cannot handle that. That's why you need a step-by-step process where you put it on paper, when you do it that in a very specific way. But in addition to being a very complex decision, there's also the fact that it's an extremely high cost of failure decision. If you get it wrong, it will affect you, your kids, your friends. It will affect you on many fronts: psychological, emotional, professional, financial. It will affect you for at least years to come, if not the rest of your life. So the reason this is relevant is because there is a biological mechanism that says whenever you have to make a decision where there's a huge cost of failure, it threatens where your survival is threatened. There's a part of your brain that is in charge of your survival that says, hey, you know what? Freeze. So because the devil that you know is better than the devil that you don't. Think about this. As long as you don't make a decision, technically you're safe. But if you make the decision to divorce, all of a sudden, you know it's going to get worse before it's going to get better by definition. But also, if you're not even certain about your decision, if you don't have that absolute clarity, then you expose yourself to the risk of blaming yourself, your kids blaming you, maybe losing the relationship with your kids. That's huge. Whereas if you don't make a decision, the status quo is safe, because technically you haven't made a decision. You cannot be blamed. So your brain keeps you shackled in what I call the status quo trap. Why? So here's another prop. I'm showing you a mock-up of the brain, and for your audio listeners, just imagine your brain like an ice cream cone that has three scoops, one on top of the other. And you have the first scoop and then the second scoop that goes on top of the first one that's bigger. And then you have the last scoop that's covering the first two. And at the bottom, the first scoop is what we call the old brain, the reptilian brain, the primal brain. And that's the part of your brain that is in charge of your survival. This part of your brain was formed 500 million years ago. Then we have what we call the emotional brain, which is the one in charge of our emotions, how we interact socially and so on. That one was formed around 200 million years ago. And finally, the last part, the third scoop on top, is the rational brain, the neocortex, the one in charge of logic, of reasoning, and of language. The reason I mentioned when each part of the brain was formed is that 500 million years ago, the neocortex that is in charge of language did not exist. 200 million years ago, language had not been developed. So what does that mean from a practical standpoint? It means that your primal brain, in charge of your survival, and your emotional brain do not understand language. Let me repeat that. They do not understand words. So this is huge, and nobody talks about that. Because let me ask you, what do the traditional solutions that people seek to make the decision divorce have in common? Whether it's marriage counseling, whether it's reading articles on the internet, whether it's talking to a therapist or to a lawyer or to their friend or to friends, what do these solutions have in common, Dave?
They all are word-based.
They are all word-based. They are all language-based. Yeah. But you know what? Your primal brain does not understand words. That's why you may know logically that is the right decision to divorce, but emotionally, you're not willing to move. You have this resistance. Why? Because the primal brain, in charge of the fight or flight response, but also of the freeze response, says, hey, freeze. The better the devil that you know is better than the devil that you know. The devil that you know is better than the devil that you don't. The fear of the unknown is huge. And this is a biological programming that keeps people shackled in the status quo. It doesn't matter that you're a smart woman who has figured everything out in life, you're still stuck in a decision regarding your relationship because the cost of failure is so high that your brain says, hey, no, when in doubt, let's wait it out. So that means that in addition to having clarity in terms of knowing exactly what the right decision is, you also need to communicate with that part of your brain so that the gatekeeper of your decision is on board. That's what I call decision harmony, where your mind, your logic is aligned with your head, is aligned with your heart, is aligned with your gut, where it's a go, go, go on all fronts because you know it logically, you can explain it to yourself, to your kids, you feel it emotionally, you feel it at a visceral level. And let me guide you through a thought experiment. I don't think we did that in our pre-call.
No,
so this is an interesting one. Okay. So do you have kids, Dave?
I have 3 adult kids. They're all out of the house, and I have all of their stuff left behind. Yes.
Let's imagine, because you remember at the time they were in middle school, maybe, right? So let's imagine that you have a son or a daughter in middle school, and you're going to find out that they are being bullied at school. I imagine you'd be upset as a parent to find out that your child is being bullied, right?
This has happened for us in the past.
Okay, I'm very sorry to hear that. Yep. So let me just, for the sake of the thought experiment for yourself and for our listeners, guide you through 4 different scenarios, 4 different ways in which you can learn the same exact piece of information that your child is being bullied at school. But let's see how you react emotionally in terms of each one of those modalities. So the first scenario is a person comes and tells you, hey, your child is being bullied at school and you don't know the other kid who's doing the bullying. You'd be upset, but just kind of get a sense of your level of upset.
Yeah. Upset, concerned, but there's still that unknown for me. I wouldn't know really how to act in that moment.
Okay.
But concerned more for my son in that moment.
Second scenario, somebody comes and says, hey, Dave, or hey, listener, your child is being bullied at school, but this time by a child, and you know that other child, you know what they look like. How do you feel now in terms of a level of upset?
Yeah, now it's went up a level.
You went up a level, right?
For sure, right, yeah.
Scenario number 3, a person comes and says, hey, Dave, hey, listener, your child is being bullied at school, and here are pictures, and they show you pictures of the other child abusing physically. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, it's working, Mike.
Okay.
It's working.
And the last one
Yep.
is imagine you go to school to pick up your child, and you actually you witness your child being physically bullied by another one. What is your level of upset in that scenario?
Yeah, that's max.
Okay.
That's maximum. That's action time
Okay.
for me. Yeah.
This is most people's reaction. Now, why? Well, it's the exact same piece of information. Your child is being bullied at school. What is the difference and why is there a crescendo between the four scenarios? It's because with each scenario, you have a better ability to visualize what the information means, right? In the first one, you just hear it. In the second one, you know what this kid looks like, so you can visualize it better. Then you have the images, then you see it live. So the way to communicate with the primal brain, with the emotional brain, is through images, not words. And what I have done is through the decoding grid, this process that I have developed, I actually have found a way to gather all the pieces of the puzzle, order them by what's essential, what's optional, whether there are any clear deal breakers, and then display that information in terms of assessing your relationship of your spouse in a visual way that your brain, your emotional brain, your primal brain immediately get at a visceral level, because there are some specific color coding, there are some specific preconditional associations of a go versus no go. You immediately get a sense of your relationship, considering all the variables at once, instantly. And once you have that level of understanding, now not only you can explain your decision logically to yourself and to your kids why you're doing this, but you also feel, you understood, you also have this final understanding of why you've been feeling the way you felt, and your gut feels good about your decision because it says, yeah, now I really understand that if I stay in this decision, in this relationship, the pain and the danger of staying in this relationship is greater than the status quo. That's the only way you're going to be able to take action when your primal brain, your old brain, this part, realizes that you're better off moving on because that's the best way to protect you. And it's like in Aikido, you're using the energy of the opponent instead of going head against head, you're actually using the energy of your opponent to deflect them. And once you apply this decoding grid and communicate with all parts of your brain will want to say, you know what? Yeah, I get it now. It makes sense. What a relief. I can move forward and I can explain it. I feel it. It's all go, go, go. Does that make sense?
It does, Mike. The visualization of that, I think, is the one key part of that for me. Really helps me kind of connect with what you're saying, because I think as any parent, that's a great illustration, first of all, Mike, because it puts you right in the moment and you feel the emotion of the moment as you bring us through that. So well done. I like that.
Good. So in a nutshell, I've covered, the main reasons why people are stuck. And basically, the biggest discovery, and I was saying at the beginning, I've discovered how to get out of the prisoner of war camp, and I'm so excited to share it, is that this is a very reliable step-by-step process that enables you to get the right decision in a way that you feel at peace with. Just like the Rubik's Cube, you can go from the jumbled one to the solved one by just following one step at a time the proper algorithm. And this is what I spell out in my book. And this is the process that I'm so excited and passionate as a life mission to share with the world.
Excellent. So for the person that has purchased your book, Mike, they're holding it in their hands. They haven't started reading yet, but they heard the podcast and now they have a copy. I always like asking this question to my guests because it's a moment for you to talk to the reader. Instead of talking to me specifically, let's talk to the reader who's holding your book right now. What's your love letter? What is that overarching thing that you want to say to the reader before they dive into the book and start consuming this amazing book? What is your message to them from the author to the reader that you want them to know from your perspective?
So first of all, it's a message of love and hope and relief. It's like you hold in your hands the key, the secret to break free of your indecision prison and of your daily misery. It really is that. It's also a message of, you could say, well, Mike, didn't you just tell me that language doesn't work? And how can a book help people? Well, the book guides you through the steps so that they apply the process in a way that is visual and so on. But most of all, the most important thing is that it does not matter what I say. It does not matter what your therapist may say, what your friends may say. The only thing that matters is what you, the reader, feel and what you feel with your mind logically, with your heart, and with your guts. And this book will give you a very specific step-by-step process to get you from anxiety and misery to certainty and clarity. So it's an easy read. A lot of people read it just in one day. And the feedback that I've gotten is that this process is amazing. It's completely different from anything else I've talked about. I mean, even the fact that nobody talks about the visual aspect and importance of making a decision is just radically different. This is based on the right research. There is the right routine in terms of applying the process, and it will give the right resolve. Does that answer your question, Dave?
Yeah, that definitely helps. Yeah. Mike, what else are we missing that we haven't really touched on that will benefit a reader, that would benefit a listener that's listening to our conversation? I want to make sure we cover the bases. We want them to buy the book. That's the main resources. We want them to come to your website, work with you, speak with you directly. We'll talk about that in a moment. What else? Is there another key component to this that we haven't touched on?
I would say that the biggest message and the biggest service that you can do to yourself is to keep the momentum going. If you listen to this podcast, it is probably because the specific topic of the divorce decision got your attention. And as I have illustrated multiple times in our conversation, the biggest challenge that you're facing is being stuck in the status quo. At the end of this podcast, your everyday life commitments will just come back, and your primal brain will work silently to keep you stuck in the status quo. It will say, hey, let's wait it out. That was an interesting talk, but let's do something about it later. So the best recommendation that I can give is, if what I shared with you today resonated with you on some level, go now and get the book. And I'll tell you where exactly you can do that. Take action, because any moment where you kind of put things on pause is a moment where you risk being sucked back into the vortex of indecision and being shackled in the status quo. So whatever that is, I give a 1-year guarantee, money back guarantee on my book, because I want people to take action to make it easy. I want to remove all the barriers to them at least getting the chance to have a better life, because I know it can be done. So whatever you do, take some action, explore this thing that is different, that is unique. Give yourself this opportunity at a better life for yourself and for your kids. Keep the momentum going. That's the message.
Great. This is really good, Mike. Let's talk about the website. Let's send people there, and maybe where their starting point is on the website, where they should start consuming it. And then I have one more question to kind of wrap up our conversation. I'm really happy you're here, Mike. Take us through the website a little bit. I have it up while we're chatting. It's a beautiful website. But what do you want people to go to first when they come to your site?
Thank you. So the title of my book is Divorce Decision Decoded. And the website, very conveniently, is divorcedecisiondecoded.com. So divorcedecisiondecoded.com, the title of my book.com. And there you'll be able to get the book. As the time of this recording, I'm also offering as a bonus the audio version of the book, so the audiobook, because some people, it's easier for them to listen rather than read. And there you'll be able to get the book. As I say, I offer the guarantee just because I want you to give yourself the chance to a better life. And you'll also have the chance to get in touch with me if for some reason you want to maybe have a conversation with me, a call to kind of understand better how what I shared with you today applies to your specific situation, and maybe you're interested in finding out more about the options to work directly with me. This is what I do. I help clients not only through the book, but I help them get the speed, the ease, and the certainty of the result, because I'm an expert, and I help people get to the result right away by working either one-on-one or with a different kind of group format. So go to divorcedecisiondecoded.com, and you'll have the chance to get the book, read it, listen to it. The more you know about it before talking to me, the better. And you'll also be able to contact me directly if you want to interact live and understand if and how we could be a good match. And most of all, get you to freedom. Let's get you out of the prison camp of indecision.
I like that. Okay, Mike, what about a listener who is young? Maybe they haven't been married yet. They haven't been in a relationship, a long-term relationship. They're not at that part of indecision, whether or not to act with a divorce in mind, but they're before the early stages of their relationships, before they've committed to someone. Can you have any words of wisdom for someone early in their relationships?
Thank you so much.
To make their relationships better in the future? Because I think you have some great insights.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to you that you bring this up, because it's actually one of the things that I want to work next, because I realize working with so many women that a lot of them, even though they've been stuck in an unhappy marriage or in should I divorce or not for 10, 15, sometimes even 20 or 25 years, a lot of them tell me, you know what, I had a feeling at the beginning that maybe I shouldn't get married. Now, this is another whole rabbit hole we're not going to get into, but
Yeah.
I realized that, what if I could help people make the decision before they get into trouble, before they have kids, before they have to make a decision to change 25 years of their life. So the beauty is that this book, as we talked at the beginning, can be applied to a wide range of decisions, but specifically in relationships. If you go and use the book to understand all the things that are important to you, gather all the variables with the specific process that I outlined step by step. If you understand what's essential versus optional, whether there are any clear deal breakers, then, and in fact, this is part of the book. It's chapter 13, how to attract your ideal, perfect, fulfilling relationship. Then people who are not married, who are young, will be able to have a look, go through a step of the exercises to use that as a decoding grid, as a pre-filter for any people that they may go out on a date. Let me give you an example. There's one phenomenon that I call being blinded by the intents. And that means that, let's say you go out on a date with someone and they have one of the characteristics that is really important to you to an extreme degree. Maybe they are extremely funny and like funny people, or maybe they are extremely affectionate and you like the affectionate people, or maybe they are extremely smart, or whatever that is. But a lot of times what happens is that we can be so blinded by one of their qualities that we tend to forget the other qualities that are relevant. Maybe not right away, but that will be relevant over time. And by having this decoding grid, meaning this blueprint for your perfect, happy, fulfilling relationship, you can have a look at it and say, you know what? This works, but you can use it as a very quick disqualifying tool so that, yes, maybe they have a great sense of humor, but I also know that my top 5 value is that they are kind. And you saw that they just, shouted or had a very bad behavior with the waiter at the restaurant. Already there, you can already know in advance, probably this is not a good fit. Or you already know what to pay attention to make sure that this is not a good fit. So even before getting married, even if you are still looking, this is a great way for you to kind of bulletproof your future to make sure that you're going to make the right decision, be with the right person, and not have to go through the divorce decision.
So when you meet someone on a swinging bridge way up high in the air and you feel an attraction with them, it might be for the wrong reasons, and that's not a good foundation to build a relationship.
What a wonderful way to close the loop. It's a beautiful comeback, Dave. You are a true professional. I very much appreciate that. Indeed.
So there we go. Everyone, all the information from Mike will be in the show notes as well, always. I love that, Mike, that you have so much confidence in what you've done, that you are willing to be there for people and walk them through this, and that you have the audiobook as well. It sounds like you've done all of your thoughts have been captivated in this book, and I anticipate you're going to have a lot of great responses by getting out there and sharing the book with us. Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for writing this, and I'm sure there's going to be questions, so people can reach out to you through your website and reach out and contact you. Thank you for being open to do that as well, and thank you for taking time to be on the show. You are very methodical. I like how you explain things. You walk us through it. You answer our questions, and then you move to the next thing. You're not blinding us with information, and we have to kind of slow down and try to take it in pieces. You're doing a very good job in how you present. So thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you being on the show. Hey, thanks for being here for the Living the Next Chapter podcast. So glad to have you as part of our family of listeners. There's a seat for you just here on Living the Next Chapter, and I'm so happy that you have listened to all the way to the end. Wow, you are now my new bestie. I want to let you know that I host 7 other podcasts on top of Living the Next Chapter. Yep, 8 total. One of them is called the How To Podcast series. If you are thinking, you know what, Dave, this podcast thing seems like a lot of fun, well, I'll give you a secret. It is. It's a great, amazing, fun time where you can get to meet great people, get your word out there, promote your book, promote what your coaching program, whatever you're doing. Podcasting is great. And if you want to learn how to do this, what you're hearing right now, head over to howtopodcast.ca and look up the How to Podcast series on YouTube, whatever app you're listening on. You'll find me there. And I'd love for you to come listen to how to do this. And if you're interested and have questions on how to podcast, reach out to me at howtopodcast.ca. Thank you for listening. Talk soon.